just wanted to start by thanking Marta for this wonderful conference and thanking for having this good idea about actually looking at forms and platforms and audiences in conjunction, because I think it's often not done because it's so much work, but it's really important, as I think the project that I've been working on actually shows. Maybe to give a little bit of background, I've been involved in a project called What Makes Danish Television drama series Travel, which was started, funded by Danish Research Council in 2014. I'm involved just as an international consultant who's based in the UK, so I've been looking at the UK because this is one of the countries where Danish drama became really, really popular and a surprising success, and that's why it was so interesting to look at the UK. And in this project, they actually divided us into three groups, into those who look at the text, those who look at the production of Danish TV drama, and those who look at audiences. And while I was actually starting to write an article, which is still not published, but then also kind of reworking this into the conference paper, I realized how actually that the project was lacking the focus on the platform, on the UK market context, on the channel that was responsible for making it so big. So this is kind of where my where then kind of added research quite late in the day, but what I'll be talking about today. So I'm using this case study of Danish TV drama series in the UK market, I think, in a way to understand two vital points. The first is, why did Danish TV drama series become so popular internationally in the first place? And by popular, I don't mean, you know, the whole world. There's no mass audience, but it has been sold to lots and lots of different countries. I mean, Denmark is a tiny country. A lot of people in the world, you know, don't even know anything about Denmark, didn't know Danish television. And suddenly, from the 2010s onwards, the drama sells worldwide. So, for example, for Brudelsen, I'll show you a little clip in a minute, sold to 159 countries around the world, and the political drama Borgen sold to 67 countries in the world. And so that was an astounding success for Danish television, and my colleagues in Denmark were trying to figure out, you know, what caused this international success. So I think I've been talking to quite a few of you. A lot of you know it already, but for those who don't, I'll just play a short clip. And so I just need to. I actually don't think the trailer does it proper justice, because there's so much focus on crime and action, when in fact The Killing One particularly, I think for those of you who now know it, is much more about the grief of the family and how everybody deals with this. But yeah, that for those of you who haven't seen it, that gives you a first impression. So what's so astounding is, first of all, these global sales, but also its impact and its success in the UK, because the UK is the world's fifth largest television market, and I'll come back to this later on, but that makes it particularly interesting to look at the UK. And what also makes it interesting is that amongst global TV scholars or transnational television scholars, there's been a dominant paradigm in recent years built on Hoskins and Meares' concept of cultural discount, you know, which says that programs foreign programs won't travel that well because there's a cultural discount. They're not as appealing to people as domestic programs are, based on that concept of cultural discount, which was developed in 1988. Joseph Strauper developed the concept of cultural proximity, saying the same things, kind of people want something that's culturally proximate. And Sinclair, Jucker and Cunningham in 1996 then said if there is international trade of TV programs, it's more likely to be within geolinguistic markets. And so the success of Danish drama internationally doesn't fit that dominant paradigm, and that makes it so interesting to look at this. So what I'll do in this paper, sorry, I just need to click once here. What I want to do in this paper, I'll first look at the form, and this is based not on my own research, but exclusively, it's like a theoretical overview of the research that has come out so far, because this is what people have been focusing on. And then I'll turn to the kind of UK platform, and I'm using the word platform loosely here. So I'll look at the BBC4, the channel which was mainly responsible for bringing a Scandinavian drama into the UK, but also, of course, BBC4 within its context, so the market context, which is not quite platform, but it's closely related. And then I'll end by looking at the UK audiences of Danish TV drama series. So how did they emerge over time, starting with The Killing? Who are they, and what do they say about Danish TV drama in order to understand what makes Danish TV drama travel, but also how did these transnational audiences for Danish and other subtitled drama emerge? And so maybe to make that clear from the beginning, my main argument here is that you really have to look at those things in conjunction if you want an explanation for the success of Danish TV drama series and the emergence of transnational audiences today. Then you have to look at the form, because they're clearly quality aspects that define Danish TV drama that I'll talk about in a second. You have to look at the platform, so the TV channel, and the market context that allowed people to discover that kind of niche drama in the first place. And then finally, you have to look at the audiences themselves. And it's really interesting because kind of some of these audiences seem to be there already and just needed to be discovered. And then other audiences actually were newly created with the success of The Killing. So this has been kind of a project that's been going on for a long time, and I've done extensive and multi-sited research. I've done document analysis, I've done interviews with the television buyers, I've done lots of focus groups and interviews with normal audiences, I've done ratings analysis. What else? I've done observations during Scandinoir events. There's 3 big Facebook pages that I've analysed. I can't go into the detail of the methodology. You can ask me about that later if you're interested. But so it's a quite big project. So to start with the form, and as I said, this does not come out of my own research. I'm relying on my colleagues here. I've divided the kind of the arguments into 3 categories to make it easier to understand. The first one I would like to call global production approach. This is about colleagues pointing out that maybe Danish TV drama series became so successful internationally because Danish producers are producing with an eye to the international market today. The Danish market is so small, and so they need a bigger audience, and they think about this bigger audience from the beginning, even though most of them, when questioned, will actually deny this. But it's very clear they do. And other people, Elke Weismann and Jakob Nielsen, have also called this the transnationalization of television drama. And what they mean by this is, so first they say nearly all drama, and especially all Danish drama, is co-produced today. And that, of course, means you have a lot of outside influences. But secondly, also, people increasingly, we live in a global world, look outside their own countries for inspiration. And so Jakob Nielsen in particular has shown, and Eva Redwell, as well, that the production dogmas of Danish TV drama are strongly influenced by US and UK production. And so what these people argue is that we have an internationalization from within. That's kind of a concept that's based on Ulrich Beck's notion of cosmopolitanization, where, it looks on a surface, it looks as though this is Danish drama because the actors are Danish, the director is Danish, the locations are Danish. But actually, if you look at how this drama developed and is influenced, you have so many influences from outside, and the production personnel has often lived in other countries, that you talk about this internationalization from within. And Elke Weisman has said this really nicely in relation to British and UK connections. She says dramas are fundamentally constructed in recognition of the other culture, which is being used as inspiration and as an additional market that needs to be catered to. The second kind of grouping I did is what we could call text inherent quality. So people have written a lot about that Danish drama when it became big with The Killing, was really of high quality, and they listed several things. The first, they said it was at the time highly innovative and unique when it came to the aesthetics, kind of especially these dark aesthetics and drawing on the landscapes, very cinematic aesthetics. People talked about the narrative complexity. So you often have a double storytelling or a triple storytelling strand. In The Killing, it was the kind of the political strand, and then of course the crime, the murder strand, which were tightly intertwined. And this kind of complexity of the storytelling is usually used to add deeper layers, a subtle moral message and psychological insight. So it's much, much more than crime drama. Other people, Gunhild Agge especially, have noted the strong gender dimension. So in all of the Scandinavian crime dramas and Danish crime dramas, you have very strong female lead characters that became very popular and really loved. If you do the audience research, you can see how much especially women relate to these characters. The distinctive use of landscape to underline characters' emotional and mental conditions really plays a strong role in these Scandinavian dramas. And also they come across as quite slow and understated in space, and the dialogue is often quite sparse. Though they really had a unique aesthetics when they came out. I think today it's not that true anymore, because actually now a lot of other countries, including America and the UK, have started copying from the Danish drama and imitating it. And then maybe finally our third category, people have wondered about the role of genre, because if you look at book sales figures, crime definitely sells really well internationally, and so Redville and Bonjeberg and Annemart Wade have all said crime certainly plays a role, although they said we shouldn't overstate it, because Borgen is a political drama, and again, it was this huge international success. So this is kind of the what most researchers have been working on to date. And what I want to add is kind of complicated further in saying, but we do need to look at the platform. We do need to look at the context into which the Danish drama was imported. And I'm referring here to Chris Barker, who in 1997 noted, in order to understand things, we need to look at the specific local conditions that shape the transnational exchange of content. Yeah, so we can't just look at the form of the text itself. And of course, in our case, and we've talked about this yesterday a lot, we've got this huge technological development, we've got the multiplication of platforms, we've got the demassification of audiences, and of course that leads to new consumption habits and to new offers. So let me come to my case study then. Just some background knowledge, and again to remind you why it was such a surprise hit, this Danish drama in the UK. So the UK is the 5th largest market in the world, and that really matters because it means that TV fiction is mostly produced domestically. Yeah, there's enough money to kind of sustain a lot of domestic production. And if the UK imports, then of course it imports from the US and to lesser degree from Canada and Australia, English-speaking countries. There's absolutely no need to import from non-English-speaking countries. Historically, I looked at figures from I think 2004, imports from Europe, even though Britain is in Europe, were around 0.5%. So looking at the 8 biggest TV channels. There were barely any imports from other European countries, very, very rare exceptions. And so, with this kind of background in mind, you think, how on earth did The Killing, ever make it so big in the UK? So it came to BBC4 in 2011, and both Series 1 and 2 were screened in 2011, and then Series 3 in 2012. And audiences grew from 600,000 in the first series to 1.2 in the second series. And that's a massive audience for subtitled drama in a country where people have no experience with subtitled drama and also know very little about Denmark. The UK is very oriented towards the US and the Commonwealth. They really don't see themselves as European. So it's this 1.2 million is absolutely remarkable on a niche channel. And it was helped by wide press coverage, and of course it started with journalists who are quite an elite and who fit that niche audience, but the whole press picked up on it. Even the tabloid The Sun reported on Sarah Lund and her jumper, so even people who didn't watch these series knew they were on, and there was something in the air. And this is really remarkable because the highest the highest rated UK drama gets an audience of about 10 million. So 1.2 million is quite a sizable audience. But to kind of come to my, and then based on the success of Forbrydelsen, The Killing, Borgen was the next Danish drama that was imported, and then Brøen, which is a Swedish-Danish co-production. But so to come to my platform arguments, I think the first explanation we have for the success of the Danish drama is that it's a highly fragmented television market. Everybody has digital television now. People have between 50 and 316 TV channels, and that means the market is incredibly fragmented. So BBC One and ITV1, the biggest channels, still have a combined audience share of 37%. But then after that, there's 4 channels that have an audience share between 2 and 6%, and then the rest of the channels, so over 300 channels, have an audience share of below 2%, and actually most of them are below 1%. Yeah, so we're really talking about really tiny audiences here. And so let's look at how BBC4 fits into this. So it's part of the BBC, which of course you all know is a public service broadcasting channel. It's a niche channel for a well-educated older audience. And you can, I don't know whether you can see that the little grey circle. So this diagram looks at age and looks at kind of education and income. And if so, age is 35 plus, and if you look at this axis, I think it's over 95% of the BBC4 audience is older than 35, and actually most of them are older than 50. The size of the circle indicates the size of the audience. So BBC4 in general has a share of around 1% of the audience, and ABC1 is the classification. So A, B, and C1 are kind of managerial jobs, kind of lower, middle, higher managerial jobs, professional jobs. So it has no no audience amongst the working class, amongst any kind of manual workers. So it's kind of the channel in the UK with the most highly educated and most affluent audience. So before The Killing was launched, there'd only been 3 subtitled TV drama series. The French Engrenage, which was screened in 2006 and already had a kind of notable audience, and then there were just 2 episodes of the Wallander films and 2 episodes of Italian serial Montalbano. And Sue Deeks, the head of acquisition for the BBC, said there were tiny audiences, but they still thought, oh, maybe kind of the subtitled drama works for us. And especially when they showed the Swedish Wallander, it coincided with the British adaptation of Wallander, and so the kind of audiences already knew about the British adaptation, and then they came across the Swedish adaptation, and the BBC4 audiences thought, oh, we really like this. So that kind of was a door opener. And based on that, then Klein, who was the BBC4 controller at the time, Richard Klein, said, oh, you know what, let's turn the Saturday nights into a posh soap for people who want to drink wine. And maybe interesting to say also is that Saturday nights in the British market is usually all about shiny floor shows. There's Strictly Come Dancing, there's The Voice, there's The X Factor. These are the audience crowd pullers. And that also means there's very little kind of good drama on at the same time, because this is what people are watching. Don't waste your money on, expensive drama. And Richard Klein kind of continued to explain. He said, I've got no money, but I know drama is a very good way of giving a channel character, giving it a voice, making it feel like this is our channel. And it was very clear to me with Wallander that you could buy this foreign stuff cheaply. And then The Killing comes along, and both he and his colleague, Sudeek, said they had absolutely no idea The Killing would be so big. They said, they knew it was well made, it was good, but they had no idea the audience would kind of, leap it up, and the press would just absolutely love it. And then something else happens if we look at the platform. In 2010, so just before The Killing was screened, the BBC underwent a strategic review. It has to do this every 10 years. And at that point, the politicians demanded that the BBC significantly reduce its budget by 25%. And that also affected BBC4, which had to reduce its budget by 10%, plus BBC4 was said to be too similar to another BBC channel, and they had to change its remit from being a general interest channel, which also produces program, with almost no money, to actually becoming. Sorry, I didn't give you the quote. That was a quote I already read. BBC4 was always responsible for kind of being a window to the world, but they made that the primary focus. So in the new BBC4 license, which came out in February 2011, just a few days after The Killing started screening, the BBC from now on, with BBC4, was no longer to be a general interest channel, but to focus. So its primary role is to reflect a range of UK and international arts, music and culture. And so they really, kind of in a way, were almost forced to rely more on foreign programming. They had no money, plus this now was the primary focus. And so the audience success of The Killing couldn't have come at a better time. I've already said that. Both Klein and Deeks didn't really expect to be so successful with it. Yeah. So I think don't look at this. It's too complicated. This was just an analysis to kind of, for me, to look at the audience schedule to see how well these subtitled drama were doing in comparison to other programs on BBC4 in the same time slot, and it shows that they were all, the most popular programs of all by far on BBC4. And one other thing is interesting in this respect. I mentioned kind of that BBC4 was lucky with getting The Killing. It was also lucky about timing. Both Richard Klein and Joe Sadler, who sold the DVDs of the Scandinavian series for his company Arrow Films, said television started changing at the time with all the TV drama series, quality series coming out. People started consuming like they're reading books. Yeah, it's about binge watching now. It's about like being in a book club, watching the same things that other people watch and then talking about it. John Sadler said, The Killing came around the time when binge watching really became a phenomenon, so it hit a good market when the DVD market was still really strong. The digital streaming market hadn't really come along a lot then. Netflix wasn't in the UK. I think at that time, The Killing sold around 300,000 box sets in the UK, and that's big in television. There will be a lot of English dramas that haven't sold that many. So it's also about lucky timing and how consumption habits are changing at that time. Back to finish. I just wanted to, I can't go into any detail here, but just to say about who these audiences are. I mean, this comes from television measurement, but also from my analysis of Facebook comments, from my focus groups. The vast majority of people watching this are, 50 plus, and they're highly affluent. But nevertheless, the more subtitled drama now there is in the market, when you do ratings analysis, you can also now see that they're not one homogeneous audiences. There are subtle differences. So older people seem to like the close serials of Montalbano and Beck, for example. Kind of people who kind of the bridge is more for the general audience, so it has affinities with lots of different kind of subgroups in British society. Whereas, of course, if you have a historical drama like 1864, which is also a Danish drama, you get a much narrower and highly educated audience. So there are subtle differences. I don't want to all put them into one box. And I just want to finish by kind of saying what they say about drama, and that actually links back to the form. So these audiences really appreciated the aesthetics and the quality of this early Danish drama of The Killing and of Borgen. This is kind of what they say about it. Fine acting, it's realistic, it's authentic, it's totally real characters, it's uncliched, it's subtle. I talked about the attractive aesthetics, how stylish it was, that it felt completely new and fresh, unlike US television. They mentioned CSI, which was always the same. And they liked the strong intellectual females. So, the quality of the kind of textual analysis is clearly reflected in what the audiences say. So, just will conclude. So, I think what I've learned from this project is that Danish TV drama series really helped create a transnational audience for subtitled drama series in the UK, because now there's more channels than BBC4 who show subtitled drama. It's quite a big thing, and a lot more people now watch subtitled drama than they ever did before. So it really has created a new niche audience. So, but as I said, there are also kind of multiple audiences with different preferences and also with different consumption histories. Some of the people in my focus groups have been watching subtitled drama for ages, like librarians, and then other people really only started with The Killing, but now are still ongoing watching subtitled drama. And then, just to say, we need to look at all these different things. So we've got lots of kind of, it's like a big puzzle, and you've got lots of different aspects. So the form with the multiple quality indicators, the platform, in our case the BBC4, with its lucky timing and being forced by government in a way to turn to international drama for lack of money, and competitors who didn't want it to buy any American series, and then the audiences who kind of were already there in a way, waiting to be discovered, waiting for something new and exciting and for something of quality, together with these new consumption practices. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Andrea. We keep the question at the end, yeah?
I don't
Few minutes, yeah? Okay. So I have maybe one question, but let's the audience first. Si vous avez quelques questions d'abord, oui? You can introduce yourself also.
Yeah. Liz Evans, Uni of Nottingham. Really interesting, and I love the kind of looking at BBC4 particularly as a channel. I was just wondering if you could say any more about the kind of impact that it's had on the UK TV market, because does seem to have been quite a seismic shift that suddenly we pay attention to drama that's not British or American, which is interesting. But also, I still find the really interesting output was they sort of British, or the BBC sort of acknowledged the own internal kind of non-English language drama or non-English language production of the UK, that suddenly they felt confident enough to produce a Welsh language drama, which is very Scandi-noir.
Yes, exactly.
Like hugely Scandi-noir.
It's hinterland.
And was like, hinterland. And it was like the first time that they'd produced a Welsh language drama that was going to be on a BBC channel.
Yeah.
And that they're kind of, it's sort of, that hasn't gone quite had the impact necessarily that it might have done, but there was kind of a real sea change about non-English language content that we just, because we're Brits, we don't pay attention to anything that's not in English. Even the kind of internal way, an acknowledgement that actually we as a country have non-English speaking areas, and that actually they have really strong production histories that have just been happening on the sidelines, suddenly became central. So I just wondered if there were any more kind of insights about the kind of impact.
Well, I kind of have to speculate. Why is the thing you went off first? I have to speculate now because you know I didn't research that, but of course I'm reading a lot. I think that the strongest impact on British drama is really the aesthetics. So you mentioned Hinterland, but also if we look at Broadchurch, you know, so I think if we talk about mainstream drama, and it's not just in the UK, it's worldwide, you can see the impact on aesthetics. As far as kind of the population engaging with subtitled drama is concerned, again, I have to speculate wildly now, but my feeling is, and I've actually read an article in The Guardian 2 days ago which said all this European drama now stops being really good. I think the more there is, you know, the more bad stuff there's. Not bad, but, you know, it's just not as good anymore, and it's definitely not unique anymore. And so I think that the niche audience, the BBC4 niche audience, and especially the core audience, they will probably remain. And as long as their channel in the UK that gives them some subtitled drama, they will continue to watch some of that. But on the other hand, I do think it will fizzle out now because in the UK market now, there's so much European drama, not just Scandinavian, but Scandinavian-inspired crime series. And they are a bit like more of the same. And of course, I think the more often people will be disappointed because they just don't have that thrilling feeling they had with The Killing in Borgen anymore. I think they're more, you know, quite a few of them are going to go off again. So you know, yes, a core audience will remain, but I think in the long term, it's not completely going to change British television. There's lots of channels now experimenting with international drama, but I think it's probably going to stay with the experimental phase. Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
So very, of course, fascinating talk. I'm really curious about this, the expert out of Denmark, and also I have a personal, oh, sorry, I'm Sharon Shachaf, your next speaker, from Georgia State. As someone studying the Israeli export, one of the things in my paper we talk about is how unbelievable it is to anybody in Israel that the you know, Channel 4 is showing the Israeli homeland. Yeah. Prisoners of War in Hebrew with subtitles, also on Hulu. You can now get it, and this is a first ever. You know, it's kind of also funny with Israel being this pariah. The worse we are politically, the more the export comes out, and it's this weird. Anyways, but what I'm really interested about this, it seems from your industrial analysis that it's the scheduling issue seems really interesting to me. You know, they found a niche. It's not going to be the people who would want to watch the shiny floor formats, and so they're watching that. And how much, you know, if you can say more about if that played into, do you think that production and at all? But also, you know, when you say they had an eye out for the international, you know, are they thinking about pitching it in that way? You know, is that playing into in a very specific way? Because I think in Israel it does. So, you know, I'm just wondering if they have that discourse. So you might not have researched that.
No, I haven't, but my colleagues in Denmark have. They've talked to all the production personnel, and so this is not related to the UK. But generally, Denmark is a country of a population of 5 million people. So, you know, you can imagine there's just not enough money coming in for production. So for a long time, all the kind of high production value Danish drama, and there isn't much of it, you know, has to be co-produced, and historically it's co-produced with the other Nordic countries plus Germany. Germany is always putting a lot of money in because Germany loves crime drama, and so they dub it anyway, so it doesn't really matter, you know. So they have a long history of co-productions, but I think they probably wanted to leave that, you know, Scandi German circle. And so a lot of the Danish production personnel actually went to the States to learn about how to produce drama there. And when my colleagues talked to them, they said they deliberately went to get international prizes. So they really produced shows with the view to taking them to international festivals, winning prizes, and then thinking that's going to help us distribute them internationally. The UK actually was one of the few countries who was quite late then in picking this up because The Killing won the first prize in 2008, and so the UK only bought it for distribution in 2011. So they were quite late. They actually only picked it up when they heard the Americans were buying the adaptation rights. But see, this is why, of course, the UK being the 5th largest market, there was really no need until it became a bit more pressing because their already small budget was even reduced. Plus, everybody was talking about The Killing. Plus, Wallander seemed quite promising, and they wanted more drama, but couldn't afford domestic productions, couldn't afford US drama. So they, in a way, they had no other choice.
I have lots of questions, but probably let other people ask too.
My name's Tony Pape from the University of Amsterdam, and I have a slightly Dutch-related question that has to do with actually what you said about the sort of niche audience, highly educated. Because in the Netherlands, there is actually a theater adaptation of Borgen, of the first 2 seasons in an 8-9 hour event, and so it's like binge-watching Borgen in the theater for high-minded people. And so there you see also the transmedia sort of adaptations of this kind of Danish content, and I was wondering whether you had looked into that, how actually this content for higher educated audiences sort of then also travels to media institutions that are associated more closely with with a certain kind of audience.
Yeah, no, I must admit I don't know anything about theatre productions. That's really exciting. But what I do know from both not so much from the focus groups, from the Facebook groups, there are a lot of people who watch especially Scandinavian TV dramas who also read a lot of crime. So there's definitely a strong connection between the book readership and the drama series.
I think that also nicely confirms what I think Liz said yesterday about how audiences actually no longer make that distinction between novel, TV, theater. It sort of all goes together. It's really interesting.
Exactly.
Thank you for the great presentation. So I should have 2 questions. I'm Valentina Re from Link Campus University, Italy. 2 questions, one about form and one about platform. As for form, I was wondering if in your focus group someone has talked about the fact that Danish crime fictions are so, this is my opinion of course, so well written. I mean, very good characters, strong stories. And for aesthetics, if anybody talks about the fact that we can read them as something like opposed as the mainstream aesthetic of USA crime fiction. I mean, like The Wire, for instance. And for platforms, I would like to know how they circulate now, I mean, after broadcasting, after DVDs on demand platforms, because maybe it's interesting to notice that in Italy, as for The Bridge, now we have the first 2 seasons on Netflix and the 3rd season, the 3rd ongoing season on Now TV, that is Sky. And this is not a very good situation, I mean, for people to engage in the series, because we have 2 seasons in one platform and the 3rd season in another platform. So it's a rights issue, of course, VOD right issue. So.
Okay, well, thank you for the questions. First about form, yes, the audiences, I mean, they really kind of know what they're looking for. And actually, nearly everybody in my focus group said, we're not just interested in Scandinavian drama, we're interested in any good drama. That's what we're looking for. And they realized that these first Danish drama series were exceptionally well written. I mean, the word that came most often up was authenticity, but authenticity really relates to a lot of things, So the characters were utterly believable because they were so well-rounded and complex. you know, the storyline was so well written, the narrative, and that's why everything came across as very authentic. You also asked about relation to kind of US drama. You know, actually a lot of, especially the older women, appreciated that characters, even though, you know, they're not ugly, but you know, they seemed more natural. They weren't kind of, they were talking about the glammed up Americans, you know, that they were really tired about. And as I said, CSI came up, you know, saying God is always the same thing and it's always too glamorous. And so they really they said it was fresh, but you know, again, it was about realness and authenticity that they really liked. The interesting thing was, again, in relation to US drama, a lot of the people in my focus groups, and of course I don't know whether that's representative because focus groups never are, but hardly anyone in my focus groups had pay TV, had Sky, and that means that they don't have access to the quality US series. You mentioned The Wire. So a lot of people in my focus group, you know, couldn't watch House of Cards, couldn't watch The Wire because they don't have pay TV. So that's another thing. They seem to also, I think, been kind of almost pushed a little bit in the direction of finding quality TV series from other countries because they don't have access to the US ones. And then to your question on platforms, yeah, it's getting really messy now. So in the beginning, everything was BBC4, and the more successful BBC4 got with these series, other channels started buying Scandinavian series. So the biggest one now is Channel 4, which has a digital platform called All4, which is still freely available, financed by advertising, but so people can binge watch the whole series on the digital platform. They often launch it on the Channel 4 channel to get an audience, but then they send them away to the digital platform. But that means they're buying up a lot of the rights, and BBC4 they haven't said this, but it must be the case, will find it increasingly difficult to buy good quality drama, subtitled drama. In the UK, pay TV, I think not that. I mean, yeah, Sky has invested a little bit. So Sky Arts also shows some subtitled drama. So it's a little bit of everywhere. But the thing is, the distributors still want to sell to a channel with a big audience. And so in the UK, you're still better off selling it to a free TV channel. You know, then Sky Arts, for example, you know, stole one Danish drama from BBC4, but then they've got no audience because you know, like an arts channel on a subscription platform doesn't get the same audience as a free-to-air channel. So it's still mainly, and also my audience is nearly everybody watches it on BBC4. You know, because I was really intrigued and I was getting really petrified at some point. Am I focusing too much on the TV channel when actually the whole audience is online? Not in the UK. And I also did a poll on the Facebook groups just to see, because my focus groups, of course, were fairly small, 37 people overall. But even the poll on Facebook suggested most English speakers watch the subtitled drama on BBC4.
Yes?
Hi. Do you have any information on the characteristics of the spectators in the Danish spectators? If are they the same of the UK spectators? If it's the niche audience with a 50-year-old plus, and do you know?
No. In Denmark, because they produce so little drama, if they produce drama, and I mean, you know, the Killing in Borgen in 1864, they're all high quality production value, so incredibly expensive, and that drama is always shown on Sunday nights and the whole population watches. So, and because Denmark doesn't have as many television channels as the UK, you get audiences for those drama of between 60 and 70% of the people watching television. So is nearly everyone in Denmark. So in that sense, it's interesting. You know, you've got a very different audience.
Thank you very much. It was really an interesting reconstruction also of the reasons of this success path. And I wanted to ask you, where is the balance, if you have some ideas about that, between a successful professional practice of scheduling and packaging well this kind of content and a cultural proximity or something like that you started from as a concept, because I think it's a kind of a combination of both stuff, and that explains also how these same products have been exported in a lot of countries, but in every country follow different paths.
Yes,
In Italy,
exactly,
for
yeah.
instance, they were able to influence the original fiction production in Italy. There are some series which look like Nordic noir now, but at the same time they weren't able to get the ratings or to get also the critical acclaim that you told about in the UK. So I think it's kind of a different balance maybe in Italy than the UK. So I wanted to know.
I absolutely agree about the different balances, but I'm really wary of generalizations. And when it comes to cultural proximity, I think that I don't doubt that because kind of the Danish characters are all kind of white and still look more like us than, for example, if you had a Chinese TV drama series, it opens the doors more easily. People are more likely to watch that, but the differences, even in the UK, are really big. So, as I said, older people love Montalbano. Or even I know a guy in his 40s who loves Montalbano because it's sunny. And, they love Italy and they love the whole image of sunny Italy. And they don't watch any Scandinavian dramas because they think it's way too dark, And then you've got the other people who, would never watch Montalbano because they think it's old-fashioned, And they love Scandinavian drama. So that doesn't have anything to do with cultural proximity, either, to Italy or to, I think, it's... Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So in a way you could say yes. People feel maybe some cultural proximity even, but it's not then about British and Italian and Danish culture, then about where individuals kind of locate themselves and where their interests lie. And I wanted to make another point, and I've now forgotten. Cultural proximity. And the other interesting thing is to come back to this idea of internationalization or from within. That drama is inherently transnational today. Richard Klein, the BBC4 controller, said, so there's two types of familiarity. One is the one that, if people look like us, we may be more likely to engage with them. But the other is, he said, if you look at the Danish TV drama, even though they were quite unique at the time, they still spoke a language that everybody's familiar with. You look at police procedurals, they're known across the world. And they said, or Borgen, West Wing was before Borgen, they said, so there was, and this kind of ties in with Joe Straupau's actually cultural proximity as well, the genre proximity. So people were already familiar with the type of drama they were watching, and that helps.
So, at last, I have only one last question, maybe, and then we start with our next speakers. You work mainly from an audience perspective, and I want to ask you if you did some survey in Denmark, for instance, among scriptwriter and producer, if they have an idea about what is, and of course, the UK market or other market in the way they are producing this kind of series. And or did you do also some comparison? I think we spoke about, you spoke about a kind of niche. I think about the French German channel Arte, who also is broadcasting this Israeli series with quite a success. So I think it also could be interesting to see what's going on outside the UK. In this comparative perspective, what is your point of view?
Yeah. So I'll start with the second question first. So Arte is really interesting also because Arte also shows the Scandinavian dramas in the original, whereas the German channels and I think the French the same, the big channels, they show it in dubbed versions. So you've got, and I think that's also very typical of our increasingly demassified market with all these niche channels, where you actually got the same show in several versions. You've got the original with subtitles. You might have a dubbed version. Then on top you get the adaptation. I mean, both the Killing has been adapted. Borgen has been adapted. So you might end up with 3 different versions of the same show in one market, each on different channels. But other than that, I haven't really looked at any of the other markets. your question about the production personnel, so I haven't spoken to them because I was kind of assigned to the audience team and then just added on the platform myself. But the colleagues who've talked to the Danish producers, they all highlighted how, you know, they had a really international outlook, how they traveled to the US to learn about the US production values. The Danish consume a lot of British television, and they've always seen British television as something to aspire to. And this is this idea, you know, so that they've been soaking up ideas and actually going for workshops for years. And so all these colleagues, that's why they say, you know, it may look like Danish television because of the everybody in it is Danish and it's produced in Denmark. But actually, if you look at the production values and how it's made, and it is really an international product.
So thank you so much, Andrea.